Okay. Oh, somebody keeps doing that.
Session to order at 5:32. And I'm gonna turn it over to Jen and Kathy and the whole team. Happy to have you guys here.
No, like that for it. Perfect, thank you. All right.
You're not passing it back there.
I was like, we gotta go for it, Kathy.
First of all, just thank you. We always get really excited when we get to come here and talk about the work we're doing with behavioral health and wellness. So we're really glad to be here. Today you'll be hearing from a few of us. You'll be hearing from Hannah Thompson, who's our mental health care coordinator at the high school level, from Kelsey Call, who's our school counselor at Neil Armstrong and department chair, and Christina Meinica, who's one of our K-8 student success coaches, and me, Kathy Kenny, district coordinator for behavioral health and wellness. Listed on the slide, but won't be here today, is Karina Lopez, who's our primarily middle school mental health care coordinator. Unfortunately, she is sick, so she went home after school. Read something. Again.
And one more.
To get us started, we always like to center ourselves in the ODE model of mental health and well-being. So anything that we do in district in terms of behavioral health and wellness, we always ask ourselves, is it trauma informed? Is it SEL driven? Is it strengths-based? And is it equity centered? And that's really how we ground ourselves in our work. You'll see that reflected in strategic plan goal 2 around behavioral health and wellness, to develop, implement, and refine a district-wide system of social, emotional, and behavioral health support that is equity centered, trauma informed, SEL driven, and strengths based. We would love to present on all of the different strategies and objectives that we have going for goal 2 this year. Unfortunately, I don't think everybody wants to be here for hours tonight. So we have selected 5 different strategies and action steps to present on. I really want to say thank you to the board members over this and gave feedback to me on what you would like to hear from tonight. We really tried to tailor our presentation to those questions. That being said, because it's a work session, if at any time you have questions or you have comments, just raise your hand, give a nod, something, get our attention. We're happy to stop and answer those questions. I hope maybe we'll hear that tonight. And at the end, we also have built-in time for your questions.
You gotta count.
So to get started, we're going to look at objective 2, strategy 3, and specifically the action step this year that Hannah's going to talk about is to expand sources of strength to Neil Armstrong, to train staff, recruit and train peer leaders, and begin student-led campaigns.
Okay, so part of our suicide prevention work that we do all of these different programs. We're continuing to train in QPR, we do our teen mental health first aid. All of our counselors and mental health staff are assist trained. We do connect, and then specifically that we're talking about today is sources of strength. We started sources of strength at the high school, I think 2 years ago, and then Neil Armstrong brought it this year. That's what we're gonna focus on. So to review what sources of strength is, we talked about it a little bit last year, but we'll review it. The 3 main goals are to build protective factors, increase connectedness, and normalize help-seeking behaviors. So it's a group of students that are our peer leaders. They were nominated or asked to join, and they're led by our adult advisors. So we meet, Neil Armstrong meets bi-weekly, and we meet at the high school monthly. And these peer leaders meet, they look at curriculum, they talk about positive messaging campaigns, and they just support positive messages around the school to build resiliency skills, talk about how do we ask for help, talk about just positive mental health and trying to build that culture in our buildings.
Can I jump in real quick, just specifically about sources of strength? Due to Senate Bill 52, I think since 2019 as a district, we've had a suicide prevention policy and plan in place. What we realized was missing after the first year or 2 of that was really that upstream prevention and specifically peer-led upstream prevention. So not just intervention and adults intervening with students, but that peer support and really getting that student voice to build a culture of wellness. And so that's where the work that they're doing.
Yeah, and so what, if you don't know what that upstream model looks like or what that means is, like Cassie said, we have a lot of things built in for the intervention level. We do our screenings, we build our support plans. We're asking the question for building support when we know it's needed. But the upstream model is, how do we build our student skills around just resiliency and what my support systems look like on a day-to-day basis? How do I know who my support people are so that I go to them before I struggle? And so that peer led and those processes are going around. Oh, we didn't do the updated slides, but that's okay.
Oh, we updated today.
Yeah, that's okay. So sources of strength at Neil Armstrong, we had 15 staff members trained this year. 43 peer leaders were trained. And then, like I said, at the middle school, they're meeting every other Wednesday during their advisory block. So that's a really big turnout for 43 students. At the high school, we have,
So was the 43 at the high school or is that 43 at?
sorry, 43 at Neil Armstrong.
I know, Armstrong. How did you guys get these spirit leaders? How did you?
So I think, and you might be able to speak to this more, why don't you guys answer? I don't know exactly Neil Armstrong.
Or I can.
Sure, go ahead.
So it went through a nomination process to begin with, where we sent out information to teachers and staff members of like, who do you think would be like really fit being in this group? And then from there, I believe as a team, we really looked through and kind of filtered down some. 43 is a pretty large number. And at this particular point, quite honestly, every time we meet, some of those who are our peer leaders are realizing like, oh, this isn't exactly what I thought. And so it's kind of naturally, they are saying, oh, this isn't for me. And so those numbers will probably get or are getting smaller, but they were recruited as in like, hey, you were nominated by a staff member that we would think that you might want this. And then they all went through a training.
We try to be really intentional with sources of strength too, that it's not just your typical peer leaders who might be engaged in sources of strength, but it's really a cross section of the school. It's about building that sense of community and peer support for wellness.
Yeah, and you want, people might talk to different people than
Yeah,
just that group that the teachers might look at, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we ensured that it included members from each of the different houses in both seventh and eighth grade, as well as students in the tag program, special education program, leadership, and including athletes, and different after-school clubs to try to make sure that it's a building-like culture that's getting shifted.
Okay, great, thanks.
It's pretty cool during the peer leader meetings to see, like, we definitely have some, like Nate's one of our great leaders in it. And so we have those like kids that have a big voice and they are really talkative and you expect the leaders to kind of show up and be there. And then we also have students that are like, I've never even seen you talk before, like normally in the hallway, and then they come and they've found a voice and they're doing the work, and it's really cool to see just like a really wide range of kids join in. So it's not on the slide, but at the high school, we currently have 34 peer leaders. We've had 15 staff members trained, and there's usually like 4 of us that attend every, 4 or 5 of us that attend every meeting. And we're meeting monthly right now.
So you're once a month and NAMS is twice a month.
Yeah. You go to the next slide. So these are some just pictures highlighting different campaigns from last year. The top one is Neil Armstrong's training from this year and their kids that were trained. Just like a lot of fun activities that get kids out and about. Typically at lunch is when we do our campaigns. And I know Neil Armstrong is on the next slide. They have 2 campaigns coming up in February that are both going to be at lunch. So at the high school upcoming campaigns that we have is what happens when you ask for help at Forest Group High School, personal experiences about asking for help, what to expect. And then our De-Stress Fest, which Nate is the mastermind behind it, along with the rest of the group. We have talked about doing, so it's gonna be at the end of the year during May, which is mental health awareness. And so Source of Strength wants to provide students a week to de-stress, to provide tools to handle stress in healthy ways. And each day will highlight a different section of the wheel. So each day we'll have different activities based on the wheel of Sources of Strength. February, the two campaigns Neil Armstrong's doing in February, which is their first campaigns, I think, right?
No, they did, campaigns in December. right?
Okay.
They did candy grams and they did, a wheel.
Okay, cool. Well, their upcoming one's February. They're doing Notes from the Heart where they're spreading generosity. And the point is to take one, leave one, and share one. And so you can write a message, take a message if you want, and then share a message. So they're creating that. And then they're doing Spread the Love candy grams, so they can buy a gram, and then have them delivered by their peers on Valentine's Day. Those are two of their campaigns coming up. So it's going well. I'd say both at Neil Armstrong and the high school, our students are really bought in and they're excited about it. There's a lot of enthusiasm around it. They have a million ideas for campaigns, and so we're trying to like get those actually in motion. We've had great building support at both levels. Our admin teams, our counselors, everyone's been really supportive of, yes, full kids from advisory. Yes, you can have the time at lunch, and they've just been really supportive all the way around. The high school last year won a team award, so we were selected as one of the sources of strength team leaders in the state, and so the kids won an award and were presented at their showcase, and they got a check to support our work. And then two of our adult advisors also won adult advisor awards for sources of strength. A couple challenges is just getting our peer leader meetings scheduled in advance and having it not interfere with important advisory dates, tests and final schedules, just like logistical things of like getting the passes out and getting all of our kids to the meetings. Those have been some challenges. And then again, just limiting impact of class time. We want it to be adding to their day, not being a barrier. So we're working through that. And then next steps include scheduling our semester 2 peer leader meetings ahead of time so that all of our students know when they are and can plan ahead. We're applying for sources of strength mini grants, and there's funding around grants that we can get towards our campaign. And then we're planning a collaboration between Neil Armstrong and the high school so that our 7th and 8th graders can see what our high schoolers are doing. Our high schoolers can show them like, hey, this is how our peer leader meetings go. This is how we plan our campaigns. So be a support to them to have them keep going and growing at Neil Armstrong, as well as get excited to join us at the high school so we can retain them when they cut up to the high school.
Thank you.
That's it.
You're up.
So moving on to objective 2, which is related to school counseling practices, and strategy 1, which is to align school counseling practices with comprehensive school counseling services. The action steps that we're in the middle of, Tom McCall and Neil Armstrong as a cohort are going through what's called the RAMP process, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute, which is really all about alignment with the ASCA national models recommendations for best practices. And additionally, Harvey Clark, Joseph Gale, for the first time are starting to take on that work, planning for it in the next year. And then Forest Grove High School, because of where they are in the cycle, are cohorting with them both to give them some parallel support and just to go through the natural 3-year cycle that it is for the process for reapplying for RAMP. So to talk a little bit more about what RAMP is, it's an acronym that stands for Recognized ASCA Model Programs. And the ASCA stands for American School Counselor Association. So it's an acronym inside of an acronym, which is always fun. And it's a recognition for programs that align themselves with the recommended best practices for comprehensive school counseling. And the American School Counselor Association is the foremost authority on what best practices are for counseling programs, all evidence-based practices. And Forest Grove High School is a bragging point for our district. They are a current RAMP program, and they're one of 7 in Oregon, and they're the only high school as well. And so that's pretty fantastic. And of course, want the rest of us to follow suit as well. So why do we want to RAMP? It's more than just getting a seal of approval to say, good job, we're doing good things. It's what's best for kids. It's the evidence-based practices that allow us to deliver, as far as any evidence directs us, the best counseling services we can. So of course, we want to get that recognition, but really the motivation is to provide the best services for students. And all students benefit. There's a lot of ramp research that consistently shows that schools that go through the ramp process and are ramp certified have positive impact on academic achievement, improving attendance rates. And then specific to the third grade, it boosts reading achievement as well as achievement for low income related populations compared to state averages. So does lots of good things, which is great. And ramp school counselors, including our high school, Neil Armstrong Middle School, and Tom McCall. This is reflected in my personal experience as well as from every conversation I've had with any of the other counselors going through this. It's been a really helpful process as a sort of meta-analysis for how we are implementing our services. Because we want to be as efficient and impactful as we can be. Time is limited and work is endless, but we want to do the best version of the work that we can while we're doing the work. And in particular, this last bullet is extremely important because that process of shifting and doing that meta-analysis and changing our practices is something that itself does take time and energy, and it wouldn't be possible to examine the shift, let alone implement the things we want to shift towards without the improved counselor-student ratios that we've had over the last few years. The recommended ratio is 250 to 1, 250 students to 1 counselor. And as we've gotten very close to that or met that in several schools, it's allowed us to move towards this K-12 alignment, which is very exciting. So I talked about ramp cohorts, and cohort A is Neil Armstrong and Tom McCall. Last year, we were going through a planning phase where we were meeting once a month to digest what all the work would entail and where our strengths were, where our growth areas were. This year, we are in our data collection year, which really means we're filling out all of the paperwork that is going to need to be submitted for the application, which will be October of next year. So we're collecting data and filling out all the technical forms so that when we submit that application, and we'll be able to provide a copy for you all as well, with excitement. And that's next year, October, that we're going to be submitting it. And it's not guaranteed, of course, that we will get that ramp certification. If not, we need to revise and adjust our processes, but we're optimistic. And after receiving ramp certification, then there would be 2 years of maintenance where we would use the general skeletal framework of the ramp process because it is useful, but we won't necessarily use like the exact forms that they use. Personally, we like the way that we lay out our annual calendar better, things like that. But it's a lot of really helpful guidelines to carry us from year to year as bits and pieces of our programs need to change. And then cohort B, Joseph Gale and Harvey Clark have been planning with next year being their data collection year, along with Forest Grove High School because of where they're on the cycle. And then in the 25-26 year in October, they will apply as well. And long term, we're hoping for all of our schools to be using this process so that we can be aligned K-12.
I want to jump in and just say, ramp is a tremendous amount of work. Kelsey is downplaying it a little bit, but it is a huge undertaking to look at every component of your comprehensive school counseling program and make sure it's evidence-based and that you can have a reason for what you're doing and you have a continuous improvement process. And so, although it is not our hard and fast, every building in the district will be ramp, it really is about alignment. It's saying that we are aligned with best practice and that students can have a relatively consistent experience, PK through 12 in our district. That being said, Joseph Gale and Harvey Clark were eager to jump on board this year with their planning year. Forest Grove High School is going through re-ramp. And I will say the other 4 elementary.
But you have to do that. That's gonna be one of my questions, because I saw the high school up there and I thought you guys said that they were already a ramp school. So do you have to go through it every 4 years? 3
Every
years?
5 years.
5 years.
So it'll be
So
their
that's where-
4th year. So it'll be their data collection year next year, which is good because you need to keep up on the practices
Right.
or else they go by the wayside.
Yes, what, can you give me an example with the data collection? Are you keeping data on kids and impact data, or are you keeping data on the counselor's behavior, or what is it that they're?
All of the above, and we're really glad you asked. Kelsey's gonna address some of that on his next slide.
Good lead in, Brad, good lead in.
Yeah.
Okay, so the ASCA national model components, really at the core of it, we define the student standards and professional standards for what we want counselors and students to be able to be implementing and receiving. We talk about how we directly and indirectly deliver the services, how we manage what our program needs, and then we assess what the outcomes are, just speaking to that data piece. Next slide, please. So this is an example, and this is very similar to some of our student learning growth goals that we already do as a district. This is an example of what ASCA calls the annual student outcome goal. And any annual student outcome goal is related to academic achievement, attendance rates, student behaviors or discipline concerns, and behavior can include social emotional outcomes as well. And so this is an example of what NAMS is focusing on. One thing that we want to target is improving attendance rates, and this goal is written to primarily target the students that are in the at-risk range of last year to make sure that this year we are providing them with additional interventions in order to improve their attendance for 8th grade so they're ready for high school. And on the right side, there's specific student standards from the American School Counselor Association and K-12. We want to make sure that all of our students are receiving the developmentally appropriate version of these standards. And related to the attendance outcome goals, we're hoping to increase students' ability to identify and overcome barriers and have more positive relationships with adults that can serve in a sort of mentoring capacity. So for those students who fall into that 80 to 90% attendance range, that yellow at-risk attendance rate from last year, we're checking with them on an individual basis. There's some family outreach, and then there's more just as per our normal existing attendance intervention processes. For that group, what we're also doing is piloting small group intervention lessons to meet with those students to identify or process different coping skills that can help them get through the school day. Go through some executive function teaching related to time management or team plans, making sure that we're connecting them with adults that they can trust, and if they don't have them, and trying to either be that trusted adult or find ways of connecting them with other parts of school, and helping them to learn different strategies for reaching out for support as well. So all that is to say that we target either academic achievement, attendance, or behavior concerns. We design interventions based on what the data tells us, and then we assess how things went based on the data that we collect. So the RAMP process and the ASCO national model uses a lot of data-driven decision-making and helps provide us a channel to make sure that we're doing that for our counseling programs as well. And one other component, the annual student outcome goal and advisory councils are 2 of 10 RAMP application components. And so these are some examples from Tom McCall and from NAMS of our advisory councils for the school counseling program. And it's a community of stakeholders, so either students, teachers, administrators, parents, board members, community partners, like NAMS has the Cornelius Public Librarian on their board, on our board.
And the mayor.
And the mayor, that's true, yep, we have the mayor for us. And so what advisory councils do, really, it's a two-way interaction for us to present on our school counseling program and then receive feedback and ideas and suggestions and whatnot from the members that are present. We meet at least twice per year, once in the fall, once in the spring. And generally the framework is in the fall, we present on what we want to focus on. We get feedback about it, particularly what our annual student outcome goal is going to be. And then in the end, we present on how that went and present on other evolving facets of the school counseling program as well. And
I know we have some board members that occasionally sit on the high school counseling advisory, which is wonderful. We will probably have some outreach from Tom McCall and Neil Armstrong at some point this year to see if we have any members who are interested in sitting on those advisory councils as well.
so what's going well? The monthly meetings where all counselors get together have been extremely valuable, particularly as we try to align pre-K through 12. And on a monthly basis, we are also meeting with our ramp cohorts in order to really dig into the extensive work that the ramp process entails. And again, the school counselor to student ratios that have improved over the last few years have been monumentally important in order to be able to deliver the services that we need to, particularly post-pandemic, as it's more helpful than anticipated, I guess. The challenge is really, of course, as always, time. There's so many things that we want to do, and many things that we love to do, and unfortunately, the time doesn't stop for us to do all of those things. And particularly, and this is more post-pandemic too, but there's still some amount of individualized student needs that are worthwhile and important to address, related, kind of like Section 504 plans is one example. Some mental health difficulties that different students are experiencing that may hold some of our time closer to individual services, which are important, but we need to make sure that we stay at an equilibrium that's balanced to deliver small group and classroom and school-wide services as well. The next steps for us is continuing to align pre-K through 12. And next year in October, we're submitting our ramp application, NAMS and Tomahawk, that is. And then it's the data collection year next year for Forest Grove High School, Joseph Gale, and Harvey Clark. And then in the future, there will be most likely more schools going through similar processes as well.
Any good cause out there?
So I have a question. So, what,
Good cause, good cause.
what,
You got a cause.
Oh.
No?
so the challenge,
Sorry.
No,
the challenge, 504 and tag. So talk about that a little bit.
So Oregon is unique in that it is pretty common in Oregon for school counselors to be 504
Right.
coordinators, but that is not the case in other states. So ASCA, the National Association, would say that is what they determine a non-school counseling task. So not that it's a bad task, not that we don't need school counselors on the team to support that. It is just the amount of time that pulls from the school counselor's day to support a very important need with 504 coordination is not technically part of their school counseling role according to ASCA. And so it's being able to balance that of meeting those needs, but technically that is a non-school counseling task.
So then we have been doing that, but we're moving away from doing
We are not moving away
Oh,
from
we're
doing
not,
that,
okay.
but
that. Well, I
really would be
didn't,
like, what are you
did-
saying? No.
no, didn't you say ASCA doesn't?
So
Does
ASCA does not define it as a school counseling task.
Right.
So for a time study, so another thing that
Right.
Kelsey did not touch on, but we do every year is
Right.
once in the fall and once in the spring, school counselors track their time for a week. And we look at how does it break down in terms of whole school needs, individual student
Right.
support, small group support. And on that time study, 504s would be categorized as a non-school counseling task.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but there are other school counselors in Oregon who do 504 coordination.
And what about the tag? What are you guys doing for the tag?
School counselors, oftentimes, my understanding is, not in every building, but in the majority of buildings, school counselors are also the tag coordinators for the building. And so they put together the plans, they hold the meetings. And that is also traditionally not a school counselor specific task, but it is something that they have been assigned in our district. Just something to be aware of, nothing that's changing, just something that we'd like to.
Just point out that
Be mindful
some
of.
of your time is being spent
Yes.
on these other.
that was well done.
Okay.
That was well done.
Well, I would like to follow up on that. I know this is outside a little bit of the presentation, but with the data that you took on non-counseling tasks, I think I was at that high school meeting where you guys displayed that. If in a dream world, besides those two things, what are the other pieces that take the majority of your time that you maybe in the future would be something for us to consider as far as staff wise and support to free up the counseling department to do mostly counseling tasks.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll take a crack at it, Kelsey.
Yeah.
You live it every day, so
Sure.
please jump in.
Yeah, go.
Those are the two main ones.
Okay.
From my understanding and meeting with school counselors, there are what we call fair share duties, so lunch duty, but ASCA would say that's okay, as long as it's the same amount that other staff in the building, that they're doing that. Now, if counselors had 3 times as many lunch duty periods than the other staff, then we would consider that a non-school counseling task. But as long as it's in kind, that's fine. We really aim for 80% of a school counselor's time to be spent on direct and indirect student services. And we're getting really close to hitting that, with our new ratios for school counselors.
The only bit that I want to add on to that really is specific to section 504 needs, where one thing that I think is complicated, not just for us, but this is happening across the nation. In general, there is an increase in students who need section 504 services. And we want to provide those services because they need it. It's a civil right of theirs to receive that support. And then the reality is that because that is something that requires individual case management, you can't really have like a 504 meeting where you're meeting with 10 students who have different 504 plans. It's, one meeting at a time, of course. And so over time, we've had more and more section 504s, which is increasing the case management demands. And again, that's another reason why the improved counselor to student ratios is extremely helpful. But something long-term that I'm starting to dig more into to try to identify best practices and collaborate with other people to get ahead of it. But I think that we're going to continue to see developmental difficulties on a national scale that's going to result in increased 504 demands.
And when you guys look at other districts that aren't doing it within the counseling system, is it the majority are doing it separately through? What does that look like in other models?
In Oregon, it's primarily school counselors. There are other districts who do it a little differently. But to be honest, that's probably a better question for Rogelio Martinez, who's our 504 coordinator.
I recently went to a section 504 conference down in Texas that Rogelio sent me to. That was really great. And we got to meet with a variety of different section 504 case managers who were from different states. And one thing that other states seem to do, this is kind of like a string of anecdotes that I'm putting together, but oftentimes the section 504 individual is sort of like a specialist who like really focuses just on that case management within a district. Some places have secretarial positions that focus on coordinating some of those services as well, but it's something that requires a pretty in-depth amount of case management, and so other places seem to be having someone function in a specialized role as opposed to an additional role.
As part of our comprehensive school counseling alignment, we're going to start the practice of sharing out our school counseling data at the end of the year. So being able to see those time studies and where we fall at different levels in terms of how school counselors spend their time is something that the board will have access to as well. To kind of see firsthand how it breaks down.
Sorry, Cassie, can you say that one more time?
Yeah, so another piece of comprehensive school counseling is we're really trying to make it more transparent in terms of how our counselors are spending their time and the data they're collecting and the goals that they're reaching and what they're learning. So at the end of the year, we'll be compiling the data from the time studies that they do in the fall and the spring, and we already do that. But that data will be available district-wide.
Number of 504s, amount of time spent on 504s.
Not necessarily the number of 504s, we don't track to that detail, but in terms of what percentage of the school counselor's time during the time study weeks is spent on non-school counseling tasks.
Part of 504, when you're case managing, is you want somebody connected in the building who knows the kids and knows the teachers and understands what goes on in the building. So I would have a hard time seeing somebody coming from outside into a building being a 504 coordinator. But I think that's one of the main reasons school counselors have that responsibility, is they're connected to the building and they know the kids. So, but if the numbers are up, that would be interesting to see.
And maybe before the budget. I know that's not, having that data. during budget discussions, or at least last year's, but current as, I know not now, but you know, I'm just saying.
And disability numbers are up nationwide, so, you know, it used to be an average was, you know, 11 to 13% in the state, now it's 14%. We're at 16 in the district. We used to be way beyond what the state average was, now we're almost right in alignment.
And in the interest of time, because I know we have really different strategies to go over next, honestly though, happy to invite us back anytime, or any data that we're not sharing, please just let us know, and we're happy to share that with whoever is interested. Christina, you're up.
Okay, so I have the last three objectives, but I want to start with just saying that everything that I'm going to share is really a team of work. So we have a group called our SEL partners. So K-8, that's 36 different staff members, and that includes teachers, admin, dean of students, counselors. And I think one of the things that we're really proud about is that also includes, especially at the 5-8 level, like we have someone from every house. We have someone from every department. We have just a wide variety of, we have some brand new staff. We have some staff that have been in our district for multiple years. So that team is a big part of this work. So objective number one is around us building a system of support around social and emotional learning for all students. Enrique, you can go ahead and go to that. And that really starts with I think we skipped one. Can you go back one for me? There you go. I wanted to make sure that I started with this. When we talk about SEL, it's important that we're all on the same page. We used to have what was traditional SEL, which really made us think of the onus is on the student. Like the student's in charge of developing skills so that they can manage their emotions. And it's all about like, what can the student do? And in the state of Oregon, we have shifted to transformative SEL. And it aligns with our student attribute work that we have already done. And so one of the key differences is instead of us focusing on just student skill, transformative SEL really talks about the onus is on all of us. And it's every adult in the system and every student, but also including like, what is our learning environment and our systems? So it helps us really take a look at, if we want to get to this learner profile, like what are the environments that we need to create? What are the systems that we need to really look at and adjust so that everyone, including the adults, are developing their skills to support students so that we're all on both sides here, developing skills, adult and student. And that turns us into transformative. The other piece is there's a real connection and a call out for the connection with equity work that we're doing. So instead of it just being the competencies, it's now called the focal constructs are also in there. And so go ahead, Enrique, thank you. This work at the state level really started in 2021. And I'm not going to go through the full history because we're really at this 2024 piece. And I want to say two things. Number one, I've had the amazing opportunity to work with the state at the state level on all three, phase 1, 2, and phase 3 that we're in right now of developing the standards and going over the frameworks. And I'm just going to tell you, like when we show you the work that we're doing, we are so far ahead of the state and other districts that just last week I got a call saying, hey, can you like share some of your things with us? So as we're developing things at the state level, we can see how you're doing it. And I want to call attention again to that SEL partner team, because that's the work that we've been doing and we're being recognized as like, we are way ahead. So in 2023, this Oregon's Transformative Social Emotional Learning Framework and Standards came out. It's required for us to implement it at the start of next school year, but we're already meeting everything that would be required. And we will have to we will have to show that we're meeting that through Division 22, but it's really us just reporting, yes, we are meeting that. And that will start in 2025. Go ahead. Okay, thank you. So what does that really mean? Like, what's the work that we're doing? And this is the crosswalk or an example of one of the pages. So what you see at the very top is a social emotional learning standard. And then right below it is the practice. So you've got your big overarching, here is the competency and the focal construct. And then the practice breaks it down more like what specifically are we doing? And then on the left in the gray, these are called growth indicators. One of the big transformative components that the state of Oregon did. We have 5 standards for K-12. They're the same standards with the same practices and the same growth indicators, because there's a realization that students do not linear, like go in a, oh, I'm here and now I'm here and now I'm here. You can't say, oh, a kindergartner is going to have all of these skills and then in first grade, they're going to develop this and in second grade. Instead, social emotional learning is really around growth. And I could be maybe at investigate and then jump back even to name emotions. So these 5 standards, what we've done, and it's work in progress, is we've done a crosswalk. So what you see in blue kind of in the middle is these are the instructional strategies that are integrated into, and this is the 5 to 8 example. We have the same work going on with our K4, but this is aligned with CHAMPS, with STOIC. So when we think about this particular practice, these are the instructional strategies that go with that practice. And if you click on this, it actually just goes to another level of, we have a coaching playbook that's like, here's the 1-pager of exactly what that practice is and checklists on how to implement it. On the next column, you can see we've aligned it with the 2 student attributes that felt like connected the most. And when I say we, again, that's that SEL team. Some of these could connect with all of our student attributes. However, the team, we really felt like, okay, we want to focus on the top 2. And then the last thing that we did was we've connected it with second step, which is our explicit instruction or social emotional learning. Now you're going to notice that this seems really vague because it's like unit 2, but it's meant to be, because unit 2 for 5th grade is all about emotional management or emotion management. So it's not that like, oh, 1 lesson hits this entire unit. So as a teacher, as a staff member, you could use this crosswalk and be like, oh, okay, so second step, I'm hitting this practice, or here's the attributes that go with it. And we have data pieces that I'll show you also, but we have this started and this is just ongoing work. But this is what we're talking about with that objective of creating a crosswalk. So there's a through line. So what's going well with this? First of all, the fact that you all did CACA, like I'm just gonna say, like I didn't get that in there. So, but that's one thing that's going well. The other thing is we really have a plan and a vision. And I think we started with a vision and that plan is working. And it also includes like, how are we checking to make sure that this is working? How are we adjusting? That document that I just showed you, like it's a living document. It won't be like, oh, here it is, we're gonna print it and give it out and it's done. Like it will adjust, especially as we align more with our instructional strategies. We focused on integrating into the systems that we already had, which is why we're so far ahead. We didn't try to add anything new. We tried to say, okay, so what are we already doing? And you're going to see that in the next 2 objectives. And then we have everything aligned as in a starter for our instructional strategies and our playbook, as I mentioned before. So what are the challenges? Like you see this on every single slide, and I have a tendency to listen to the board meetings or come like, right, everyone that presents to you, what's one of the challenges? Time. And I'm going to say, for this particular work, the biggest challenge we have with time is our SEL partners are amazing and their teachers and their staff members, and just finding time to be able to work and have work sessions. Right now we are limited to, okay, after school. And that's just, it's a reality. Our other challenge is also what's going well, but aligning with current practices, just because we're trying to make sure that we are working with teaching and learning. We're working with our ELT department and just making sure that we're aware of the current practices and how do they align versus everything being siloed. And that leads to, we really have to, not we, like Cassie often helps remind me and everyone else, that we have to take small steps. And it's really easy to be like, oh, this work is going great, let's jump ahead. But I think we've had so much success because we're taking small steps and we're focusing on the systems of support. And so that's our next steps. We're going to continue the work we're doing. We are going to continue 100% into in tier 1 meeting integration. I'll talk about that a little more here in a minute. And then we really are focusing on how are we making sure that we're providing resources for implementing the SEL standards in community circle and our morning meetings, which is something that already occurs, or during advisory. So those systems that already occur, how are we helping get these resources to teachers to do that? which le- I thought I had a good cough.
I know.
We didn't want to have to.
So, thanks. Objective 3 is all around MTSS and our SEL survey. And so I really just want to make sure that I'm reviewing. We moved several years ago away from just using discipline referrals as our source of how are we making decisions when it comes to social emotional learning. And we have a social emotional learning survey. And I'm going to go ahead and say, on the next slide, this just shows you our timeline. So everything that's in purple is like the planning, and then you get to that light green where we piloted, and then now we're in the dark green where this is what schools are doing on the SEL survey, and then we kind of have our maintenance. So it was that pre-planning, the pilot, then implementing and maintaining. So as of this year, we have 5 elementary schools doing the SEL survey, 3rd and 4th grade, and all of those schools that are doing the SEL survey, we have integrated with literacy. So they already had a system in place with 100% meetings. We have now integrated social emotional learning. So when we have our 100% meetings for literacy, we have an SEL component. They choose a strategy and a focus area for literacy, and then they choose a strategy for social emotional learning, and they walk out with a plan for both.
I think it's important to just mention too, for the SEL survey, it's student self-report. So it's not teachers rating students on their SEL skills, it's students reflecting on their own SEL skills. So we have their voice in the process, and we're saying, where do students feel like they're at with self-management and social awareness? And how do we create an environment that helps all students to learn those skills?
And I just want to mention too that, so at Neil Armstrong, right now, we have 1 7th grade house and 1 8th grade house. They give the survey, and then we, every benchmark, do what we call a tier 1 SEL meeting. And that includes all content areas. So the entire house comes, we look at the SEL data, we look at their academic components, and they set goals and choose strategies. So right now, like that is in place. And then next year, the plan is for all of Neil Armstrong, all houses to be running this process. And we're also working on piloting and how are we going to do this at K2. Which Cassie, thank you, already kind of started this. We gave you an example. So here on the left is the SEL survey. I know that's hard to see, but again, students take this, right? They take it, it's self-report. And what I wanted to just make sure that I mentioned on this is a survey. This is the students using their voice. This is not an assessment. So we don't set the same type of goals as they do for academics.
Can I call you really quick?
Please.
Can you, since we can't, or have a hard time seeing it, can you give me just one example of one of the survey questions?
Question number 1, how carefully do you follow directions? And that one I think says, how carefully do you listen to other people's point of view?
And that kind of rates the.
Yep. And so then it's like not carefully at all, somewhat carefully, all the way to like extremely carefully. There's like, how often do you come to class prepared? How often do you complete your work without waiting until the last minute? So those questions then turn into analytics. So we use Panorama for this survey. And we, again, worked into systems that we already have. So we worked into advisory and our SEL times and community circle. And then what happens is we get these reports. So what you're seeing in the middle at the bottom is an overall summary of the 5 categories. And like, here's how our students are reporting. And then at the top though, we can go into each individual student. And this is really important. We cannot see the answers of individual students. But we can see what Panorama does is it gives us a snapshot of that student's like overarching for self-management. So like the very, very top is that student has taken the survey now 6 times. So we really look for trends. And then here at the right, you're going to see overall, this is what we use in our 100% meetings or our tier 1 meetings. So for self-management, we can go through question by question and see, are we up or are we down, and which areas are students reporting least favorable, most favorable.
If something, sorry to cut off, if something comes out in the survey that is a red flag, does it flag you guys immediately?
It would, so there is no qualitative data in the survey, it's just scales. But I will say our counselors do have access, and they use what's called the challenging and positive feeling scales, where students should say, how frequently they felt a list of positive feelings and a list of challenging feelings in the last several weeks. And our counselors will review that just to make sure there's no student who's struggling that they're unaware of. And if they do see a student where they're like, oh, I didn't realize that maybe they're struggling right now, it's just a reason to get curious.
Right.
And then they check
And
in.
then do a check-in or.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this, but I just really wanted to make sure that you know that we take feedback really seriously. So after every survey window, we send this out to anyone who gave the survey so that we can get feedback on like, how much time is it taking you to plan? How much time is it taking your students? And then anyone who maybe be an outlier that's saying, oh, this is taking me forever, we reach out to them. Go ahead. We also do the same thing for all of our 100% meetings. Immediately after, they provide us with feedback of like, was this meaningful? Did you leave this meeting with knowing what your strategy was and how you were going to implement it? They put their names on these surveys because that allows us, especially as coaches, like if you put no, then I need to follow up with you for two reasons. I need to make sure you know what the vision is, but also like, okay, so what could we change in that meeting to make sure that you walk out with that information? And this is just the feedback from our tier 1 at NAMS. So right, you're looking down here and you're like, oh, wow, sort of. Well, that was a huge key for me of like, I need to make sure that I'm checking in. If they're unclear on how we're tracking the progress, then we need to change that system, or we need to have a house meeting and determine like, how are we doing this so that we're all on the same page. And what's going well, you can see like already using our systems that we have, the alignment work that we've done, and really making that shift to a whole child mindset, because our challenge is again, our time. And I'm just going to highlight the impact on coaching work. So these meetings are very, very important, but then they also mean that we're not meeting with individual teachers. At the same time though, they do provide more of a vision for us when we're working with individual teachers of, oh, in your meeting, this is what your strategy was. So our next step is really to continue our alignment and continually update our resources, because we know that that's work. The last thing that's really important that we're focused on is how do we make sure that we're providing training on Panorama and this process to new staff. So when they come into those meetings, they're like ready to participate versus like having to kind of sit through the first one. Which then leads us to CHAMPS. So our last objective is really the action is around CHAMPS, classroom management for engagement at NAMS. And I want to make sure that I mention this. It's so hard that the company like calls it CHAMPS, because they call it CHAMPS because they felt like when we went to the training, they were like, well, STOIC is really the decision-making process, but they call it CHAMPS because that was more marketable. And it becomes very confusing because CHAMPS is one drop in the bucket strategy. So when we use CHAMPS, that's where sometimes like we're really working hard on that language. So where are we and how are we implementing? And this is just our team decided we can't even call this year 1. We're calling this year 0. And when we meet and do work as a team, we really focused on, we have 2 big keys that we need to think about. What are we going to implement this year? And what are we going to ensure that we're providing knowledge on? So we know that we're not like having any expectations that it's happening in the classrooms, but we need to do some training, because you can't like train on everything and implement on everything. So this first year, you can see for STOIC, our implementation focus was really on structures, like having high structure in classrooms and what does that mean? And then every staff member created a classroom management for engagement plan. And then our team and admin and building teams really worked on, okay, we have to look at our systems and how are they aligning with this other work? And then we focused on the teach part of expectations, which is CHAMPS, but teachers chose one focus area. So then they might have said, I'm going to focus on direct instruction. And that's it. That's the only time that they're using that, because they need praxis. They need to practice in action before we say, oh, you have to do this throughout the entire day. And then you can see kind of how our plan works on increasing what we're implementing as we are continuing to add knowledge. And then we have a plan for maintenance. So right now we have a 4-year plan, but it starts with year 0, which is where we are. So we have 3 levels of PD that we are doing this year. The first level is every 158 Tom McCall and Neil Armstrong coming together for district-wide PD. Our focus during those times is new learning. Anything that we do during that is new learning. Then during building CIT times, we review on the new learning and reflect and provide any additional resources that our feedback forms gave us from the new learning. And then every month at Neil Armstrong, the houses have a time set during their house meetings that they talk about champs. And our CASAs at Tom McCall have a set time that they talk about champs. And that's really set for time to reflect and time to problem solve. So we have all three levels. We have new learning, we have time to review, and then we have time for problem solving. It's more individual. And from there, we make sure that we're getting constant feedback. So in our district PDs, we have feedback forms. We send out a monthly feedback. We have a winter benchmark that we sent out to all licensed staff, and classified will get that this week because they're doing some training this week. And it's really like, how's this going? What are you implementing? You'll see some of that data. But then we have a check-in system for our CASA and houses. And then I, as a coach, if I'm working with an individual teacher, we have aligned our data observation form with all of this and with champs. So if a teacher is working with me individually and they ask me to come in and collect data, it is aligned with Stoic. So they can just jump right to like, oh, this is the area I want to focus on. Here are strategies. And then we also had some questions in the climate survey. So here's our feedback. In the climate survey, both NAMS and Tom McCall, there was a question on identify the professional development, which has helped you the most. And overwhelmingly, over 80% for both Tom McCall and NAMS, it was champs. We also asked them, like, on a scale of 0 or 1 to 10, like, how much has this impacted it? So you can see that piece in the middle. And I'm just going to say this, like, I don't know that I've ever been involved in something where we didn't have at least 1 or 2 or 3 at the very low end. Like, I was looking at this and I was like, wow, this really speaks to, we listened to teachers and staff and they helped choose what we were doing. And there's a tremendous amount of buy-in and hard work going on. This is just, what are the strategies that you're doing? What do you feel like you need more of? And then this, I'm sorry, I didn't have access to the Tom McCall full climate, but I did want to share this. Juliana shared this with me for NAMS. So she did a comparison, and these were the areas that with structure, we really focused on with champs. So like, I like this school, that's up. Now, I still wouldn't say 74% is where we want it to be, but like the growth, we're super excited about. One true example of structure. Over the summer, one of the things we looked at or talked about was in between passing periods. And we looked at the structure and teachers said, we have to make sure that we're at our doors and not just like, what are we going to be doing? And look at this difference. So this year, last year, 66% said that most of the time, 92% of our students are saying, yes, during passing time, I see teachers sitting at their doors. And that might not seem like a huge thing, but that's a huge structural piece. And we all know then like what that means for supervision and just having the opportunity to interact with students. I also want to just note that these 2 questions were on the student form. So CHAMPS helps students know what is expected of them, and CHAMPS helps promote positive learning environment. These 2 questions, when I saw them, I was like, wow, it brings a lot of questions. Like we need to get curious and dig into this, because the first thing that I want to know is, what does, as a student, what do they designate as champs? Because we haven't really done champs in a way that we're like, oh, this is champs. This piece is champs. And even when you walk in a classroom and champs is up, they don't use that language, especially at Neil Armstrong, of I'm going to go through champs. It's more like, hey, I want you to know your conversation is this. I want you to know, here's how you get help. Here's the activity we're doing. So these numbers, when I take them back to the SEL team, I think we're really going to dig in, because one of the things that I would like to come back to the committee that created the questions is, was our intent of knowing whether or not students knew the expectations? So if so, can we maybe reword that of like, do you know the expectations in your classrooms? Or is the intent like that we want students to know champs? And if so, then we're gonna need to make that more visible to them of like, oh, you standing at the door is part of, and I don't think that's what we're getting at. But what I love about these numbers is we've been implementing champs since September, and we're at 56 and 55%. Now, is that anywhere close where I want us to be or where we want to be? No, but it's a baseline for us. And now we can get really curious about what does this mean and what do we need to do moving forward?
Yeah, that's not bad for first year program implementation formats.
Sorry. So I'm not gonna, I kind of already hit on these things. There's a lot going well, but I want to mention like, there's a lot going well, but this is hard. This is hard work and there are a lot of challenges. And the number one thing that I keep hearing that I just wanted to make sure that I recognized is, okay, how long is this gonna last? Like teachers, staff, they're loving this right now of like, we're really creating a common language, but it's like, what is our commitment? And so I think that that's just really important to keep in our minds of, we know we have some big things coming up. We have a math adoption coming up. We have, right, all of these other pieces. And so one of the biggest next steps is just for our team to continue to realize and know how are we integrating into the systems and that work so that it doesn't feel like one more added thing and it doesn't get lost. Because this work has been asked for and it's made a huge difference. And we have to make sure that we're continuing it.
And one just recognition I want to give is to the administrators of the buildings like Tom McCall and Neil Armstrong, because they have not approached this as, oh, this is a district initiative. You led the teams, you do the work. No, they have dug in, they have learned everything they can about champs and stoic, and they have done everything they can to support that in their building. So it's been, really has been a team decision and teamwork with teachers and administration at both Tom McCall and Nance.
And I'm not going to read all of these, but I thought that you probably got a copy of these slides. So in our winter feedback, this is just a few of the things that teachers and staff members said about if they were asked. And I'm just going to read the bottom left one there. Champ still allows me to make decisions as a teacher while also ensuring alignment throughout the school. Like that's what we hear over and over. And I think that's the most powerful piece of this is not a program and it's not a curriculum. It's a decision-making process. And so we're integrating into our systems and making sure that we have support because we have to recognize the expertise in the room and allow our teachers and our staff members to make decisions, but also like, are those decisions having an impact? And if not, then how are we going to adjust? Sorry, I went over.
I was like, I mean, I think you could have got it a lot longer, we know ya. I have a couple of quick things, I know we need to move on, but I'm just curious about when you're in a new teacher program, are they going over the SEL objectives and training for SEL? And I think that that's something that we need to start talking to our graduate programs about is it'd be so much more helpful if these teachers are coming out trained in this instead of everybody saying they need more time. Well, the time to learn some of these things would be in grad school, I would think. And if they came with that, then that would be very helpful. I'm wondering if champs is something that's used in other districts and if we could say to some of these schools, like, hey, these programs are being utilized, like they should be a part of your program. Just conversations like that. Just a couple of questions I was wondering about. I have it with other programs too, but I was just thinking, I mean, all the teachers should be trained in SEL. So
Yeah.
are they getting
Yes.
trained? I don't know.
So at the state level, when we had our last meeting, they brought in some of the more prominent universities for that train teachers. And yes, that is going to be, I think it's down the road, but there is a plan for requiring that for teacher prep. SEL is already part of most teacher prep, and now that we have true standards and a framework, that work will be done. They'll at least be exposed to it. I think the hard part is like exactly how is that exposure. And as for champs, yes, there are districts around us that use champs at varying levels. Beaverton and Hillsborough do some, Beaverton more than Hillsborough. Portland Public, there are some pockets of champs, and we did when we were exploring multiple classroom management and engagement programs. We looked at and talked to those other districts. In fact, Cassie and I reached out to some of them. So yes, I know that our universities around here and colleges around here, like they're trying to do that. The problem is there's just so many things, but yeah, I hear you. I think.
No, that's what I
hey,
think that we need to streamline our programs and all these different subjects and stuff and not have so many where everybody's learning a different thing and then you change in 5 years. And I'm sure that's what the teachers are feeling about this. Like, are we really gonna be doing this or are you gonna change it in a couple of years? So it's just something for us to think about.
I do want to say though, just a real quick, historically, if you look, like we've had PACs in our district for now almost 8 years. And that, like, when we talk about the work, right, Champs is a piece of that. And so we have really made a commitment to keeping so that we can build versus this is the new shiny thing. So
Right.
thank you for that. I know that that's really important to all of us of like, how can we make sure that we're sustaining this? And that comes from building the systems versus it's relying on a person or, right, it's just in small pockets.
Right. Do you guys have any other questions or cause for them? Okay, we really appreciate you guys coming. Always, it's great to hear about what you guys have going on and all the things.
Thank you. If there are any follow-up questions, the information's up there. Shoot me an email, give me a call, and if it's more data you're after, Brad.
Always. Can you quantify that? for me? I was like, can I get $20 every time it says it? Sure.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can't hear you guys.
Yeah, we're just waiting a moment. We're about to start in just a moment.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to call to order the January 22nd, 2024 Forest Grove School District Board of Directors meeting at 6:44. If we could, oh wait, roll call the board members present. Valerie Ingram, present. Chrissy Cochran, present.
Present. Present. Okay.
And Kate
Adrian
is
Dusty
here.
present.
Please rise. Most likely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're gonna do introductions of the audience. Barry, would you like to start first?
I'm Fairfield, parent.
Thank you.
I'd like to keep the minute.
Lisa Papatina, parent. Mary Monica, parent. Danielle Bay, parent. Allison Sandwell, secondary math facilitator.
Ricky Carter, Director of Nutrition Services, converted Lions fan for this weekend.
Share some services.
David Warner, Communications.
Enrique Pinion, Technology.
Eileen Flip, business.
The issue business.
Christine Dad, student success coach, pre-K board.
Jeff Leo, parent / teacher.
Serena Fitz, Forest Grove Education Association.
And Marie Smith, Cal and Forest Grove, pre-K association, representative.
Christina Heineken, student success coach. Kathy Kenny, coordinator for behavioral health.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for being with us tonight. I would like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Kate. Kate, are you there?
Yes, I am.
We just had a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I agree.
Great. Great, thanks. Correspondence and celebrations. Human Capital Enterprises, our partners with the Forest Grove School District Superintendent Search, has been conducting small focus groups as they gather information from stakeholders to outline what we want to see in the next superintendent of schools. An online survey closes tonight. Our next steps will be a special board meeting on February 5th, 2024 at 5 p.m. The search firm will provide the board with the results of the focus groups and survey. HCE will also present a draft of the next superintendent criteria. This meeting will also provide another opportunity for public input. The board will discuss and adopt the next superintendent criteria. Once adopted, this document will inform the recruitment and selection process. On February 6, 2024, the recruitment window will open through March 4th, 2024. Nate, you're up. Student representative report.
Hello, okay. Howdy, everyone. I do not have very much to report. As some of you guys might know, we didn't have a week of school. But I do have some things. For one, it is School Board Appreciation Week. A big shout out to Belinda and Paola, which helped put some of this together. You guys have seen them. They came to one of our meetings and they just really love doing all things service. They're the leads of our service committee. So big thanks to them. They're really awesome. We no longer had Jam the Gym last week. We are now moving it to the 9th of February. I believe, if it still happens, hopefully. And all the events that we had planned last week are no longer happening. We're going to see if they can be moved to another time. But today we did have the food pantry open regularly, so that's good. And yeah, that's really all I have. And hopefully, we'll get some more normal schedules.
Yes, and good luck to everybody with their finals this week.
Oh,
And
yeah.
to you as well, Nate. Recognition, thank you. I'll just turn it over to, Mr. O'Neill. He's gonna do recognition and the superintendent report and calendar notes.
Sounds good. And I'm filling in for Dave Parker, our superintendent, who had a successful knee replacement surgery today. He's already up in Washington, and we've all wished him well and speedy recovery. But he strongly echoes this sentiment along with our entire admin team and everybody else in the district. January is National School Boards Appreciation Month. Our school board is made up of 5 dedicated individuals that provide leadership and direction for our school district. Our school board members come from all walks of life, and although they wear many hats in our community, they put on a collective hat when they get to the business of leading our school district. They pull together as a team toward a common goal, and that's helping our students and staff achieve. Val, Christy, Kate, Mark, and Brad contribute hundreds of hours each year. Their love for learning and the concern and caring for students, staff, and community drives their desire to lead so students can achieve. Even though we're making a special effort during January to show our appreciation for our school board members, we recognize their contributions reflect a year-round effort on their part. They are dedicated individuals who are committed to improving student achievement and fighting for the best of all of our students. I invite you to recognize and celebrate the work of our school board members today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and so just a few superintendent comments. This Friday is our secretarian service, and it'll be held in Forest Grove High School Library from 9 to 1. The vast majority of our school secretaries are new to their position within the last 3 years. This fall, we had our annual secretary training. We asked how many of you are new to your position. Every hand but one went up. So we have a lot of work to do in terms of training and support. We will be focusing on current roles, responsibilities, district processes that impact their role in support of students and staff in their schools. This Saturday at 10 a.m. will be a memorial service for Bruce Shields, and it'll be held at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on Brook Street near the high school. Bruce was a longtime instructional aide at Cal, and his wife Jo has worked in our human resources department for several years. Bruce passed away unexpectedly at his home, and our thoughts and prayers are with him and his entire family during this difficult time. Inclement weather and loss of school last week. District-wide, we're examining our instructional hours for this year, and will bring a recommendation regarding potential makeup days in the near future to our school board. The high school eliminated finals schedule for this week and instead implemented 2 full A days and 2 full B days this week, focusing on completion of essential assignments for students. The end of semester will remain unchanged with non-student days scheduled for this Friday for grading and Monday, January 29th as a non-student day. Again, more information to come to the school board. The annual AWALA conference is scheduled for Saturday, February 3rd at Wilsonville High School. Historically, our district has sent a large team of teachers and staff to this conference. This year, the Human Resources Department will host a table in an effort to recruit and support staff of color. And this is in alignment with Goal 4 of our strategic plan, diversifying the workforce. And we're excited about that opportunity. Forest Grove High School will be hosting a diaper drive from Monday, January 8th to Wednesday, January 31st. All diapers that are collected for this diaper drive will be donated to different organizations that help pregnant teens in our communities. All diapers can be dropped off in Ms. Johnson's room from 2705 or in the main commons diaper boxes. Thank you for any donations that you can make. And this past Sunday, our varsity cheer team competed at Westland High School. Yep, Westland High School. The team took second place in 6A varsity small game day division and third place in 5A, 6A varsity small traditional division. The team leaves this week for nationals and invites you to their national send-off performance, which will be held on Tuesday in the Maroon Gym at 7 p.m. So we cheer on the Vikings. And then calendar notes, there's a list of calendar activities at your table, and there's several.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, Fourth Grove Education Association, come on up.
I looked at the faces, I like it. I'm Serena Fitz. I am the current bargaining chair. So we will be back at the bargaining table for financial after spring break. And then I'm also by day at the pre-K for ELD TOSA, a role that I stepped into this last November. Before that, I've been in First Health, so cool. So first of all, FGEA does want to also recognize the school board and thank you all for showing up, for hearing us when we speak and opening up a platform for us to speak. Many of you have met with us for coffee, so that we can speak openly and directly. And we really thank you for your commitment to our district. I really appreciate it. So today, actually part of the reason that I specifically am here, I've been listening to school board meetings and the discussion of newcomers, and that's certainly a new challenge that has presented itself to our district. And what I just really want to point out is the complexity of this group of kids. And I want to start by saying too, these are our kids. These are not those kids, or these are not our problem, right? These are our kids, and it is our challenge to serve them and meet them where they are and give them what they need. The challenge is not new to us. We've had newcomers in the district, for a very long time. What's new is the volume of kiddos that we're seeing and the number of schools that we are now seeing newcomers in. And that is certainly presenting a challenge to many teachers who have not necessarily been trained with those skills, don't know what to do, don't necessarily know how to connect. The other challenge too that comes is the complexity. It's really easy to picture a newcomer and put one view on who they are. I just want to paint a kind of a portrait of who they are, who our kids are. Some of them, many of them are from Central America. We don't know how they got here, but often that comes with some trauma, some kind of journey, some kind of experience that is impacting them deeper than we'll probably ever know. Some of our kiddos have strong Spanish, right? Some of our kiddos have had formal schooling, and they come to us with academic Spanish. They're ready to learn English and transfer those skills, right? That's certainly a different way that we need to connect with those kids. Some of our kiddos have strong conversational Spanish, but they may or may not have had any formal school. And they come to us in all different grades, fourth grade, even the high school. And it is our job to meet them where they are. But they're learning academic Spanish, they're learning academic English, and they're putting that all together on top of whatever experiences they have or haven't had. And some of our kiddos are coming to us not with Spanish, not with English, but with a language from Guatemala. Many of our kiddos speak some Spanish as their second language, but speak a native language as their first. So English now is their third language. So they're learning academic Spanish, academic English, putting that all together. And again, we know that many of them have had experience. And possibly little to no formal schooling. So a lot of newness and a lot of things coming and changing all at once. In Guatemala, I will also point out, there are 24 native languages. So simply speaking a native language doesn't mean we can just connect you and have an affinity group, right? You're like, oh, they both speak the same language. Often that's not true, even if they're from Guatemala. So there's certainly all these layers and complexities to who our kiddos are and how we're coming to it. So I just wanted to, as we're talking about supports, as we're talking about instructional assistance, instructional strategies, there is no one size fits all, our teachers need support, and it's not a one-time fix-all either, right? That these are kiddos who we're going to support over time, right? And their experience will change and evolve, and they'll need us and they'll need our support, their whole educational program.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Appreciate it. Great. Okay, we are on to public comment. Unscheduled public appearance. The board appreciates community members sharing information during public comments. Public comments will be made in person or submitted through the designated form on the webpage to be read by district staff or registered Zoom participants who indicated through the form they wanted to provide their comments live. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes, as is the protocol for board meetings. Public criticism or complaints about school district personnel are not allowed at this time. We have one tonight, and it is gonna be Miss Sarah Field. Come on up, Sarah.
I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Sarah Field. I have started a Facebook group in April 2023 called the Portrait Parents, the Children on IEPs. We have 161 members as of today. The goal of this group is to be a supportive community to each other, bounce ideas off each other, problem solve, share resources for therapies, doctors, etc. And to know first and foremost that we are not alone. We have a community that resonates with each other on what we experience on a day-to-day basis, trying to navigate everyday life, including school. We have meetings once a month in person to talk about struggles and frustrations we face and try to problem solve. Just recently, I went to a coffee meet and greet to listen to our district state representative, Susan McCall. We shared with her about a huge struggle that I keep hearing at each IEP group meeting, and that is pertaining to special education. How difficult it is to navigate, to have open communication, transparency, feeling like we are not part of the IEP team, not being heard or respected as parents, as well as trust. Each of these components are unbelievably important to us parents. After this session, Representative McLean offered to come to one of our IEP meetings so we could focus specifically on special education. At the meeting, Representative McLean listened to parents' frustrations and concerns. Also present was board members Christy and Kate. The discussion in this meeting went over budgets, funding at state and federal levels, and how we can better our special education for our children. There was a lot of information shared. I've been trying my best to talk about, ask, and find solutions to what seems to be priorities of parents. I reached out to Superintendent Dave Parker and was able to meet with them and talk about some of my experiences and struggles navigating in special education. I want to problem solve in a positive and productive way. I think meeting with Dave was a step in the right direction. Another step that I've taken is that I've contacted Kate and Christy to go over what I would like to see change-wise for special education and see what the next steps could be. One of my points was a more inclusive summer school for students on IEPs that can pinpoint more of what their educational needs are. I also would like to hear more about plans and goals at the school board meetings regarding special education. The next step that I've taken is scheduling a meeting with Dr. Kimberly Shear to go over concerns and try to come up with ideas to help close the communication gap with parents and student services. I'm hopeful that this will move us in a positive direction. To close, I am impressed with how many parents are wanting to support their children's education, be involved, and learn about what they can do to help their children be successful in school. We just need to problem solve together to make this happen. I'm hopeful that change can be made to make this a reality. Thank you for your time. I look forward to moving on to the next steps and working with everyone to find positive solutions. I would also like to extend an invite if anybody would like to sit down at some point in time and go over ideas on coffee. I was wanting to share.
Thanks so much, Sarah. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of routine, non-controversial items to be voted on under one motion. Are there any items within the consent items the board member or the superintendent wishes to discuss separately? Hearing none, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Sorry.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Presentations. 2022-2023 audit report. David, Bledsoe, you will be joining via Zoom. Are we still on time with Blizzard? We're okay, great. I forgot about that. Question, word question, sorry. Kevin, you should have reminded me of that.
He changed his other meeting.
Oh, we did, okay, then we're good, we're great. Okay. Yeah. Hi, David.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks for
Yes.
joining us.
Okay, perfect. Good evening. Thank you for having me. I just wanted to briefly introduce myself. My name is David Bledsoe with Pollard Rogers & Co. CPA firm in Tigard, Oregon. I've been working with the district on the annual fiscal audits now for 3 or 4 years. Time kind of flies during COVID, so they'll kind of blur together. I just want to quickly kind of go over the highlight reel of this year's audit. From a 30,000 foot view is another good audit year. This year we saw 2 big changes. The first being the implementation of a new accounting standard called FGSD 96. The basic idea of this one was the rule setting body, the FGSD board, decided they wanted to capture the value of subscription payments you're paying over a period of time. We're doing this presentation on Zoom. You have to pay for Zoom. So presumably if you have a 3-year contract with Zoom, you have an asset related to your obligation to pay them for the next 3 years. So the idea was they wanted to kind of synthesize that information to help users get a bit more clarity with that and present some numbers for you on page 1 of the financial report. The other big change from this year versus the prior year is the successful issuance of the new bond. The district was able to issue that. We did look at the issuance entries as well as some of the related spending and saw no issues there. During our audit this year, for federal spending, we looked at the ESSER program in addition to the IDEA special education program, noting no issues there. We also perform procedures as we do on an annual basis over the student investment accounts. Again, noting no procedures there, no issues there. The only real audit finding to note is that the district did have an over expenditure in one of their funds that is referenced in the board letter as well as in our opinion letter for the Oregon minimum standards. Outside of that, it was another great audit year. District staff were really good to work with. Do want to specifically highlight that the FGSD 96 standard that we went through, they were only one of 2 that I worked with that actually finished it during the time when we usually show up to the district in September and October to actually look at things. Everyone else took well into November, December, so they were definitely on the forefront of getting that cleaned up. Happy to answer any questions that the board may have about numbers or talk about accounting to your heart's content.
Do you guys have any questions? David, I'll just give a shout out to our business department. Well done. You guys are the best of the best.
Yeah.
Great day. Kate, do you have anything?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. I don't think we do here either. Thanks, David, for taking the time to zoom in and join us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, have a good night.
This is all. Bye.
Okay, next presentation is by Mr. O'Neill, the Student Climate Survey Results.
Excellent. So thank you. We do have a presentation coming up. And first, I'd like to thank the District Climate Survey Committee for their feedback, suggestions, additions to this year's survey. I think it made it even better than far better than what we had originally. Committee members include representatives from elementary, upper elementary, middle school, and high school principals, FGEA president, OSEA president, classified, and 2 school board members, Adrian Dusty and Christy Cockey. And we were a very vocal bunch, and we arrived where we needed to in terms of no, all of us. So we reviewed prior questions that we had for years. And the last time we implemented that was in 1920, right before the COVID pandemic. We looked at those questions, made revisions, substitutions, and additions to garner more explicit feedback on site and district priorities. And so tonight, this is the first group that we're going to bring to you, and that's the student climate survey results. We're going to compare this year's student feedback, the same questions, as much as possible, that they line up for 2019. We're going to review how principals and district use this feedback and identify how we'll share these results with our entire stakeholders, parents, students, community members. And then we'll discuss next steps for district climate surveys and district departmental level surveys. And at the very end, we'll have time for questions and answers. So we had a pretty good participation. We had 71% of our students enrolled that participated. In 1920, we had 74%. What's that? 1920. Yeah, 1920.
2019.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so, I'm sorry. So the, year 2019-20, we had 74% participation. Overall perceptions, overall social and learning climate of the school was positive. And the average positive percentage is there for your reference. So at elementary grades 3-4, it was 87% with 87% participation level. 5-6, that includes Tom McCall and the 59 students at Echo Shaw, 5th and 6th grade, 77% positive responding rate, 84% participation rate. Middle school 7-8, 76 positive percent, and then 83% participation rate. And 9-12, we had 84% positive and 53% participation rate. So when you look at this year's administration to the year 2019-20, where the difference was we, for some reason, 200 students at the high school level didn't take the assessment. And so we're going to drill down as to why that happens so that we can get better participation rate at that level. Elementary student summary results. All 6 of our elementary schools are combined. And then the top 7 questions with the highest percentage positive are these ones for your reference. My teachers are excited about teaching and what they do. 96% of our elementary teachers responded, agreed or strongly agreed. The NA for 1920 means that wasn't phrased that way in 1990, 2019, 2020. Oh, man. But you can see the teachers and staff believe all students can learn. It was 94%. And I apologize for double numbers. I'm not sure how that happened, but 94% previously. So we're right back to pre-pandemic levels on that question. The school's preparing me for the next grade level, 93% this year, and it was 91%, so a little bit of I like my school, 92%. I feel safe at school, 89%, pre-pandemic, 86%. My teachers tell me how I'm doing in school, 89% compared to 86%. And I see my principal at school, 88%, 85%. The next slide shows the lowest 7 questions. I didn't want to take the board's time on all of these questions, but I shared with the board previously the summative results for each of the levels of all the questions. And the entire community will get all the responses for every school, as well as the district numbers as well. So the lowest questions, that's not bad percentages for the lowest, but this is a consistent theme that we continue to address pre-pandemic and after the pandemic. Students treat other students well at the school, 69% and in 1920 to 60%. And you'll see that come through at every level, every single one. I like reading. This is a new question, 77%. I'm good at reading, 80%. I feel challenged academically, 81. I like math, 83, and I'm good at math, 84%. And then my parents can volunteer at the school if they want, 83%, and previously 81% from 1920. For the upper elementary student schools, teachers and staff believe all students can learn, 93%, consistent pre-pandemic. Teachers care about my success in school, 88% and 90%, 2% difference. I know I need to attend school every day to do well in my classes. The committee felt this is extremely important to get it out there for grades 5 through 12, and we added it very intentionally. 88%, again, 88% is pretty high, but we have some work to do. And then my teachers are excited about teaching and enjoy what they're doing, 84. I like my school, 84. My teachers tell me how I'm doing in school, 84. And the school's preparing me for career in college, ready by the time I graduate, 84%. So just a slight decline of 3 to 4 points from the previous years. The lowest questions, students treat other students well at the school. Again, 49%, the lowest score. I know exactly how many days of school I've missed, only 53%. I like reading, 63%. I feel challenged academically, 81. I'm good at math, 66. I like math, 67. And there are multiple opportunities for parent involvement. That's interesting, 72%. Pre-pandemic, that number was 85% on the fall in grade 5, 6 at Echo Shaw. So we have some work to do in communicating the opportunities for parents, at least for the students. We're interested to see how the parents respond to that. Middle school, top 7 questions. My teachers know my name, 93%. As a former middle school teacher and principal, that's a pretty strong number. We want that 100%, but 93%. During passing time, I see my teachers staying by their hallway. We heard that during our work session, 92%, second highest scoring. I know how to report a problem, 88%. I have at least one adult who's guiding me on my path to graduation, 88%. I know how to get help in the classroom when I need it, 86. Using Chromebooks, helping learn. And I know I need to attend every school every day to do well in my classes, 86%. Those are the top 7 questions. Again, students treat other students well at the school, 45%. Champs, we heard about this in the work session, brand new program, and it takes 0 to 4 years to fully implement. So that's not bad when you consider that. Champs helps promote a positive learning environment, 55%. And Champs helps students know what is expected of them, 56%. And I have conversations with each and every principal regarding their results. And Juliana Kelly is she's great with those numbers. As a starting point baseline, again, only 4 months in the program. You see that I feel emotionally safe at school. Teachers tell me about my progress in school. And teachers are excited about teaching and enjoy what they do, 72%. For the high school, I show respect towards other students. Now that's interesting. You look at that, they're talking about I show respect for other students, but we'll see shortly how other students show respect to other students. So 98% reported that they do show respect to other students. I use Synergy, student view, to check my grades, 97%. I care about learning and getting a great education, 96%. Teachers know my name, 96%. My teachers expect me to participate in class, 96%. My teachers encourage me to do my best, 95%. And I feel physically safe in my classes, 93%. And that 89%, we wanted to drill down. I feel safe at school, at my school was 89%. But we wanted to drill down in the hallways, in classes, that sort of thing. And those others weren't in the top or bottom of, but they're in the middle. In terms of the bottom 7 questions for the high school, there we go. This is that interesting dichotomy. Students treat other students well at the school, 45%. I often need extra help with homework, 45%. That's not bad considering that's 45% that need extra help. The other 55% don't need help. So I've been able to meet with our SRO. There's 3 questions or 4 questions on middle school and high school, and 54% they had a chance to meet with the SRO. 63% know how many days they missed. And the majority of students in my school treat one another with respect, 70%. And again, when you compare that to the question, I show respect for students, that's 97%, but this one is lower than that. So anyway, just interesting data that we're crunching. And then how we, provide feedback. So I've held meetings with each principal to review their climate survey results, identified areas of strength and priority areas of improvement. And upcoming meetings will be held with each principal to review the parent, teacher, and staff climate survey results as soon as that window closes, and that closes this Friday. Principals are to share their results with their staff and discuss in their building site council and leadership teams meetings the results, looking at the data, and okay, so let's inform, how are we doing on our school goals? And then data informs the district improvement plan, the district strategic plan, and we discussed that in elementary, secondary principals, district admin meeting, and in cabinet. And we had an in-depth discussion today in cabinet regarding the results. So how will we share results with all stakeholders? Tonight's board meeting is the first step with the student climate survey. Future board meeting, I'd be more than happy to come back and share the parent, teacher, and staff results. After this board meeting, the student district climate survey results will be posted on each school's webpage. A summary student district climate survey results will be posted on the district web pages. And then additional climate surveys, parent, teacher, and staff will be posted on each of the websites as well. Discussions in building site councils will be scheduled with parents, staff, and teacher representatives to look at the school improvement goals, and then what are we doing well, what areas do we need to work in. Just giving you anecdotal feedback and meeting with each principal, I gave them the data prior to my meeting with them. They don't focus on many of the top ones, they always focus on the bottom ones. They're separated on that and how can we get better. So the survey was extended to increase staff, teacher, and parent feedback. Again, closes this Friday. The district departmental level surveys have been delayed due to inclement weather closure and the demands of changing semesters at grades 5 through 12 and at the request of FGEA. The union came to us last week in labor management and said, hey, this is not a good time to survey teachers and staff. Can we please put it off? And we agreed with them. So there will be a delay in that. It'll be February 19th through March 1st. All district staff will be able to share feedback regarding each department at the district level as part of district level improvement planning and the superintendent's supervision and evaluation process. These results will not be made public because they are evaluative in nature, and that will be between superintendent and each department director or assistant superintendent. Sense? Yeah. And then let's see the next slide. Just questions. Are there any questions?
I have a question, John.
Sure.
John, I'm curious about when I looked at the details of the 3rd and 4th grade elementary schools, all of them only had less than 25% participation of the students. So how and when did the principals have the students take the survey? I mean, was there a time period in the classroom, or because when I look at Cornelius, there's only 21% of the students participated. Dilley was 12. Fern Hill was 10% of the students. Joseph Gale was 19%. So what was the communication with the principals to the teachers, and how are the teachers having the students fill out those questionnaires?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just a reminder, Kate, that that was only 3rd and 4th grade students that took it.
Right.
So,
but those numbers are reflecting, percentages are reflecting, oh, I know what you're saying. It reflects just 3rd and 4th, the total amount. Okay, got it. Okay.
Yep. And that was confusing too, Kate, because when I started looking at it, I went, oh, wait a minute, hold on. It's just 3rd and 4th grade. Because we did have, what was it? 660 responses. But again, it only was 3rd and 4th grade. Didn't include K1 and 2. No. Yeah. Thanks, Kate. Do you have any other questions, Kate?
I'll talk to you later. Okay, John.
Sounds good. Sure.
Did we ask, I noticed at the middle school, the question about whether you feel good at math, was that not asked at middle and high? I didn't see it on either.
Yeah, so yes, we did. It just didn't rise or drop to that level. For instance,
That's okay.
yeah,
I think, one of the things I noticed in that is the pretty dramatic drop between K4, kids feeling confident in math. I mean, we know that's pretty well-known research wise. I really like using those markers to be able to delineate and maybe drill down with those kids in fifth. Why specifically, what has caused them to feel that way? I mean, I think that helps look at maybe what we can do instruction wise and support wise. But and to be able to see it across and follow kids across, I think that was the idea over here. So yes, we same kids are going through. Can we keep that percentage higher? The second question was, I'm curious about the 20% or so in middle school that don't feel yet that they have an adult that is advocating for that. So because we didn't really, I don't think we know specifically what kids yet, but if that is 20% somewhere and they're not feeling like they have an adult, what that looks like as far as following up to identify those kids. And then I think high school spoke to it as well, like what are the things we're gonna do earlier to make sure even in elementary, kids feel like they have a person and identifying. And then the last, well, there's a couple other pieces, but the last one about sharing back with students, I would like to see if there was a way to share back with students, not only the results of the high school. I mean, I'm interested to see if we can get that other 50%. So, and I think some of that may be innate. I don't know if you can speak to this. I know sometimes we hear like, well, what we take the surveys, but what happens? So a piece of that is, I think we can share, but nobody's going to probably go to the website to be able to share. But when you share the results, to be able to share with that and say, okay, students, we hear that 45% of you need extra help with work, that you're even maybe being assigned in class as a staff and the district. We hear that, and here's some of the things we're going to try to put in place, and we're going to come back to you to see if, ideally, the goal would be that you're able to do some of the work on your own. So not only posting the results, but maybe a couple action pieces so kids and parents can see the action we're taking and
So I'm gonna assume that's the administrative, when you meet with them, John, to come up with strategies. And Chrissy's point about involving the kids in that discussion was probably a good point that you might bring up with that meeting.
absolutely. And historically, what we've done is, Karen, and then before her, I would take it to the superintendent student leadership advisory, but as well as ASP, as well as Renaissance, just to get a cross section of student representatives, just to get their feedback and ideas for improvement. How can we better support you?
well, and maybe just on that particular one, what schools would want to do to drill down to find out what exactly is the piece of help that was needed. I mean, we did something similar in Hillsborough, and one of the things we found out was that most kids said, well, actually, we can do the homework. We just didn't know how to get started or where. It was a pretty simple, but we didn't know until we asked it, and then we were able to make a shift. So Nate, I don't know, can you speak a little bit to the survey or your impressions of what you would suggest there?
Yeah, so typically, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, typically what happens is during our advisory classes, which we do every Thursday at the high school, that is where we take this survey. And the thing with that is that it's not really, at least for each class differs in what they do, because you have the same teacher for all 4 years. And for that class specifically, the teachers don't always look over each person individually on whether or not they're completing the survey. So it's kind of more like a loose thing, I feel, at the high school. And a lot of students kind of treat it as oh, this doesn't impact me, so why would I fill this out? Because someone else is going to do it, and their information is gonna be more valid than mine. So I just feel like it's kind of the students don't really feel like it does anything, so they just don't really feel empowered to take the survey.
Thank you. We should.
Yeah, that's great.
Again, a lot of these percentages this is the first year that we're, asking these questions, so this is a baseline year.
I think there are good questions, but,
Yeah, thanks.
yeah. Any other questions or comments, John? All right, no, thanks. On to action items. And as a national school counselor, yes, got that, like, it's offered to share, so it's eating your skills over here. National Counseling Week and School Counseling Week is February 5th through the 9th, so I'm gonna go ahead and read the proclamation. National School Counseling Week proclamation. Whereas school counselors are employed in public and private schools to help students reach their full potential. And whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development. And whereas school counselors help parents focus on ways to further the educational, personal, and social growth of their children. And whereas school counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals for themselves. And whereas school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society. And finally, whereas comprehensive development school counseling programs are considered an integral part of an educational process that enables all students to achieve success in school. Therefore, the Forest Grove School District Board of Directors do hereby proclaim February 5th through 9th, 2024 as National School Counseling Week. All in favor? Oh wait, I move to accept School Counseling Week.
Second.
Proclamation. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Allison, come join us to talk to us about the new, titles from that club.
And I'd just like to point out, Arturo Lomoli is, sick, and he asked whether or not he should be here tonight. And unanimously, Kevin said, no, please just zoom in, so he would like to be here in person.
Thanks, Allison, for joining us.
Yeah, we're here today just to seek approval for the plan course statements for intermediate algebra and finite mathematics, as presented at the last board meeting, to replace the currently existing year-long transition algebra 2 class with these two separate standalone semester courses.
Did you guys have questions about it? And we got a lot of information about the last.
I just
Yeah.
my question, I don't even know if I asked the last time. I understand it has to be, happen right away. And is there, why, I guess my question would be, why wasn't it changed earlier? Or,
So the state didn't pass
oh,
the new thing until May.
okay,
And so there wasn't time to even get the information that it had been passed. I knew it was in the works because I'm involved in several state committees, but wasn't aware that it had actually been passed through. And so there was a really short timeline to then understand that it had been passed, and then what are the significant.
okay, got it.
And we didn't realize the impact it was causing on students, that it was immediate, until students started actually applying for college, and the colleges were having issues with the title of the course.
That's right.
Any other questions? Okay, I move, we're gonna do this in two things. Okay. I move to approve the intermediate algebra plan course statement as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And finite mathematics plan course statement. I move to approve the finite mathematics plan course statement as presented.
Second.
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, both motions passed. Thank you. Future action items. We're gonna hear a little bit about the policy updates from John and then maybe from marketing.
Yeah, so Cabinet has looked over the, suggested OSBA policy updates. And we forwarded some recommendations. These are the ones that we're moving forward for discussion tonight and future action. There were a couple that we need to pull back and have continued discussions on, and we'll be working on those as well. So, Kate and Mark, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I don't know, Kate's on the call here, we met, I think, a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
I think we did have some questions that was, Kathy, Kate, Dave and I were talking about them, and if I remember right, Dave was gonna do some look, maybe those are the ones you're talking about, but I don't even remember exactly There's a bunch of them here, so I don't remember
Yes.
exactly which one it is.
So what we did is we took a look at the ones that, are of the board reps sent back to us
Okay.
with questions, why aren't we? Because some of them are proposed, they're not required.
Right.
That was a big key. And then also in terms of language,
Yeah.
and how does it fit with us?
Okay, okay,
The only one we
Okay.
added back in was the superintendent's contract,
yeah,
and we took
we had a
out
question
that
about
one.
that one.
Yeah, we went and took out that
Yeah.
whole section out. The rest of them, Dave and John and Arthur are gonna meet about
Okay.
the rest of the topic. So those we took out,
Okay.
we just put the ones that we didn't.
Okay. There's always, there were quite a few.
Okay, so at the next meeting, we'll be approving policies that they didn't have questions about. And there's a few that they had questions about that you're still discussing and researching, and then we'll go back to those later. Okay,
We'll bring them back to the board reps. In March.
okay. Kate, did you have anything?
No, the majority of the policies, they were already, we've already reviewed them before, and they were just updates, and then we deleted a few. So, yeah, we spent 2 hours going over them and looking at the language, and I think we did a good job.
Okay, great. Well, we appreciate you guys doing that. We do. Sorry, next thing, are you gonna put down? Yeah.
I'm great with that.
Okay, future board items for discussion. Opportunity for the board to provide input for future board items or discuss and report on any committee meetings they have attended. Christie?
I have a few things because last Thursday I received a call that, I was appointed to the OSBA board for this district area. And then they said, and we're meeting in Salem next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So last Friday I went to Salem and attended my first meeting there. There are about 23 of us across the state. So I'm coming on to this board at a really interesting time. And the Friday meeting was a public meeting. It was really a reset. There was a lot of transition of officers and new people, and also a very challenging meeting in November where I think it really highlighted some areas that OSBA wants to work on as far as just culture and policy shifting and people shifting. And so we spent Friday evening really just getting to know the people on the committee, and also celebrating the rural caucus, which has been created. So the representative from the rural caucus was there. Multiple people from the people of color caucus attended. And that was Friday night. Saturday was more of a focus on really just team building and getting us to a point where we can move forward with really what I think what OSBA has mentioned is they ask school boards to really look at their policies. But they're realizing, even at the OSBA level, that it's been a long time since they've reviewed policies at that level as well. And so that's a part of the focus going forward, the work we're going to do. And then Sunday, the LPC, which is Legislative Policy Committee, which Mark has been a part of, but apparently on the board, you also are a part of. So that meeting was Sunday afternoon. And the discussion there was about really some renewed energy around the quality education model, like QEMs that we call it. And that's really the way that some sort of mysterious algorithm that shifts funding all over the state and has been very difficult to really even start a conversation about how do we really restart looking at that model. And there is momentum now, we think, all the way up and down throughout the legislature, all the way down to the boards and below. And I know that COSTA administrators have been advocating for that to really start looking at that. And so that was an emphasis. And then one of the things the LPC board members asked, they said, they're asking boards to really consider as a board looking at involvement with the legislator in a more involved way. So whereas maybe it used to be one member that was on a committee and did the advocating, they requested that boards dig in and really work at seeing how we can get more involved individually with getting to know our legislators and really being a part of the conversation. So I know that's on our list for possible work sessions, and it is one of our board goals, but maybe that's a bigger conversation again, like to have Susan McLean come and just really say, like, beyond our dinner, which is Wednesday, and the typical advocacy that we do, what are the other pieces that may look like, at least at our level, and then how does this board want me to interact on its behalf at the bigger level? So that conversation possibly coming up when we have time. But the really exciting thing is that we, Washington County, is one of only 2 regions that do one of the things they suggested, which is the legislative dinner, which we're having Wednesday. Nate is going as our student representative, and we are meeting with all the school board members, all the superintendents, and then our local legislators Wednesday with ESD. There'll be a short program from ESD. They're going to talk a little bit about the QEM focus and where the funding is with that. And then we're going to be able to hear from students, specifically about the impact of the student success funding and how that's impacted students directly in our district. So thanks to Nate for offering to go to do that, but also thanks to the work that Mark's done on this LPP committee to really, and Becky Timchuk, and Mark Watson from Hillsborough, that this group that has really been advocating, we are a pretty strong region in the advocacy, and we're kind of known for that. So we want to keep it rolling. So Wednesday night at 6, they just changed the time. We'll pick you up, Nate, and I think that's a pretty good, see, that's a pretty short synopsis for me for 3 days of meetings.
There you go.
I'm actually impressed. I know, thank you.
So may I
I'm
ask,
trying to, I know, right. I mean, I'm improving.
which board members are going to be there this morning?
For us two, for sure, I don't know. No,
Okay.
Kate, are you planning on going to the dinner on Wednesday night?
I am hoping to be able to go, yes.
Okay, if you want to come, then, I'll pick you up. So just give me a call. I don't know if I actually can do that. I can do it. No, well, that's kind of.
Oh, I know, forum.
Yeah.
We would only be able to sing songs and listen to music. We couldn't talk about any business. We'll just do some car security.
Yeah, you can't. I have 3 of them in college.
Sorry, Kate, I can't pick you up.
You can technically,
Gotta
as
watch.
long as you don't talk about it.
Hey, I can pick you up if you want.
Okay, great, John will be going too. We'll converse about this later. Okay, anything further? Anybody? No? Thank you guys all for coming. Thank you for talking to us. We appreciate it.
Yes.
And thanks for the gifts and the recognition.
Stay for the photo, please.
Yes, please stay for a quick photo. That's why David's been staying patiently waiting. And meeting's adjourned at 7:40.
We don't have a choice.